playing with confidence. Searches it inside 50.
Inside 50, good hands.
Drilling it into centre half forward. That was end-to-end football at its best.
Back-to-back goals either side of quarter time.
They have done it, the Bulldogs!
I'd fight somebody for you. There ain't no wall I would run through. In your corner when they're ringing the bell. Come hell or high water. I'd fight somebody for you.
Yes, g'day WAFL fans. Welcome one and all to another big edition of Around the WAFL. It's our special public holiday Monday edition of Around the WAFL. Coming to you on the Around the WAFL YouTube channel and also on your podcast service wherever you may be across this great state or anywhere around the world. It's great to have your company off the back of a wild ANZAC weekend of football. My name's Paul Persick. Great to have your company on this Monday night. And joining me, of course, he's going to be on the Monday shows going forward for the rest of 2026. But he's the man with all the insight, Ethan Roth. You're coming off the back of a wild weekend yourself. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Paul. It was an interesting weekend, as we always say, some interesting results and some close games. I know you were at the full brunt of that, so I'm looking forward to discussing that and more here today.
Absolutely, and of course you can check us out on our socials, Facebook and Instagram at Around the WAFL for all your great social content. We post interviews, reels, highlights from said interviews, and also fixtures and the ladders as well. Plus, the first unveiling of the Around the WAFL Player of the Year leaderboard, Rothy, and dare I say it, contrasting in both competitions.
Yeah, we'll get to that a bit later on, and yes, one in particular in the WAFLW has jumped out of the box early, to say the least.
Don't want to give that away just yet, so if you already know, look away now, that's all we'll say. But let's get right down to business as we recap all the action here on Around the WAFL on this Monday night on your YouTube channel and also your podcast service. South Fremantle, they had a blip on the radar the weekend before last in that 5-point loss to Claremont, but the best way to bounce back as reigning premiers is with a win. And it was with a 30-point win over West Perth that South Fremantle got themselves back on track. And their coach, Craig White, is good enough to join us here on Around the WAFL to kick off proceedings on this Monday night. G'day, Craig.
G'day, Paul. G'day, Ethan. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on the show. I picked something very interesting up on the interview post-game, making my way back from Lathlane, watching the West Perth South Fremantle game, and it seemed to say that, the side's still got a bit of work to do because looking at the highlights, your side rarely got out of second gear. Would that be fair to say? Because West Perth had a lot of good opportunities to really claw that margin back.
Yeah, that's right. We definitely don't think we're playing to our best at the moment, but probably just with a little bit of turnover of list and some younger guys getting some opportunity in the first few weeks of the season means there's probably a few things to iron out at the moment, and just a little bit of our ball movement and our connection going inside 50 we feel like is still a work in progress, and then our team defence, which Claremont were able to do a really good job of getting through the week before, is still a work in progress as well. And West Perth, were able to generate, enough inside 50s to probably give themselves enough. But I think individually our backs did quite well to be able to stop most of those forward entries.
You mentioned the Claremont game there, and of course you never want to lose a game, but do you think in some aspects it's potentially starting a fresh, clean slate? Because the talk about the winning streak continuing on, and I guess you only have to look back at last year, that loss against the Eagles, not comparing, but obviously you went on to win every game since then, so maybe not the worst thing for your side, and you can regroup after that one loss.
Look, I think in general it's it's a loss that's was obviously a very close one and in a hard fought game against one of the top contenders. So look, we don't think it's like a total bad thing, but look, we thought that we within the game and within the review that we had our opportunities to win it. So I think that was probably the most disappointing part, is that we put ourselves into a winnable position and weren't able to close it out. So there's a bit of learnings from that. Last week, and then trying to fix up a couple of things, but you want to keep winning as much as you can. I don't think the streak really came into it. I think there was a little bit of outside noise late last week, but it wasn't something that we were kind of considering or talking about internally. So we were probably just a little bit flat that we did cough up the loss, and hopefully we can take some learnings of it going forward.
I tell you, Isaiah Winder played an exceptional game on Sunday. 29 touches, 7 marks and 6 tackles. His role as that, key midfielder, he's really blossomed into that in the last couple of years, and his running game in particular has improved since last year.
Yeah, look, his ability to get out on the spread and anticipate where the ball's going to go is first class, and look, he's a great user of the ball as well. So we try and get him the ball when we can when he gets out into space, and he's had a really solid start to the year, and probably following on the back end of last year, we thought his back end of the year and his finals campaign was super, and then he's been able to have an injury-free pre-season, which has totally helped, and he's nice and fit at the moment, and he's able to hit the scoreboard as well for us. So he's a really exciting prospect, and hopefully we can keep that form going from him.
One of the young players who's got a lot of eyes on him at the moment is Lucas Robinson. He's blossomed into WAFL footy seamlessly at the moment. Do you see him continuing to play a key part outside of course, under-18 championships duties in this league side for the rest of the season?
Oh, look, yeah, I think in the immediate short term, yes, I think that's right, Ethan. I think he's, the way he's been able to come in and play a couple of roles for us. I think round one he was a pure inside mid for the whole day, and then over the last 2 weeks he's kind of bounced between mid and forward. So being able to be versatile for us, he's a strong mark overhead for an 18-year-old. He's obviously a big body and a big bull for his age. So look, we want to keep working with him as long as his form holds up. We'll definitely be looking at him to play, and I think we want to try and give him as many opportunities as we can, and try and give him a couple of strings to his bow, because he's obviously going to be more than likely an inside mid for the 18s championships. We want to be able to show AFL clubs that are looking at him that he might be able to play forward if needed, and potentially back if that opportunity arises as well.
Craig, congratulations on the win on Sunday against West Perth. Back on the winning vein. All the best on the weekend against Subiaco in a day-night match at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. Thanks for your time, mate.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
That was Craig White, the reigning premiership coach from South Fremantle. He's good enough to join us here on Around the WAFL. And, they don't want to look at the streak too much. And I think that's a good way of putting it. After that loss to Claremont, they wanted to put that right behind them and, start a clean slate, so to speak. And, the way they showed it, okay, it was only 30 points in the end, but it's the 4 points nonetheless. And that's something they needed and something they got.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to get the win and move forward. And, sure, they didn't blow West Perth out of the realms by any means, but I think, sometimes the 4 points is the most important thing, and just because the ladder differential of the form coming into the sides might have been a bit contrasting doesn't mean it's going to be one-sided. So credit to South Fremantle. Feels like they don't play too often at Joondalup as well, so good exposure for them.
They've won their last 3 games now over at Joondalup, and they're running into some very good form now at the right time, but they do have a couple of tough challenges in the weeks ahead. We'll clear a break, and when we do come back here on Around the WAFL, we're going to recap all the action from the ANZAC Day weekend. It's all thanks to Sullivan Logistics, District Promotions, Front Row Screens, and Grant's Car Stereo. This is Around the WAFL on YouTube and your podcast service. Stay with us.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the Waffle on the Around the Waffle YouTube channel and on your podcast service. Paul Persick and Ethan Roth with you, recapping all the action from the ANZAC long weekend. We'll have the WAFLW 5th round recap in just a little bit, but first it's WAFL round 4 action, Rothy, and we started off with a couple of crackers on Saturday. First off at Lathlane, Perth and East Perth, and East Perth holding the Demons goalless in the first quarter, but the Demons came back gradually in the remaining 3 quarters, but unable to take most of their chances late, and in the end the Royals held on for a 4-point win in a game where they had something to prove, and they proved it.
Yeah, I went to see the second half of this before the Colts game to follow, and yeah, big crowd in there, obviously traditional Anzac Day fixture at Lathlane, and Perth obviously couldn't come away with the chockies, but they didn't give up until the end, which was, pleasing considering, it was East Perth's game towards the latter stage to lose. So yeah, East Perth come away with a victory when I think, both of us tipped against them, so proving some people wrong.
Yeah, they certainly did, and they know now that they are right back on track, because East Perth, we said last week that they weren't up to their best. They were short of what many were expecting, but they had some big returns. Hamish Brayshaw in particular, he played with something to prove after missing the first few matches with a calf injury. He was massive in that win. He had 27 disposals and 7 magnificent marks.
And 10 tackles as well, so he did it on the defensive end as much as winning the footy. So yeah, they walk taller when he's out there, and I think, what he's able to do when he gets his hand on the ball, but more so his presence, really lifts the players around him. So there's no doubt, I think if Hamish Brayshaw wasn't there, they potentially might have not come away with the 4 points.
Scott Jones and Josh Edwards had a great battle in the ruck as well, and I feel Jones won it out because he got more hit-outs to advantage. He only had the 4 disposals to follow up, but his hit-outs to advantage played a real decisive role in the second half.
Yeah, it did, and anytime Scotty Jones is your opponent, it's going to be tough, but yeah, Edwards battled hard all day and gave his mids a chance in the end. He had the 19 hit-outs compared to Jones's 36, so just the 4 touches for Scott Jones as well, so I think Edwards got the better of him in terms of work around the ground with 15 touches himself.
Yeah, he certainly did in that area. Edwards with 15, as you said, Constable with 33, and Oscar Hine-Baston noticeably quiet with 14. One thing that they were missing was Brendan Parfitt, of course, out with a broken hand. He would have been very handy for the Demons in that one. But telling number, 46-32 in the inside 50s as well. So those missed chances all going down to those repeated entries inside 50 in the second half going unrewarded. Case in point, Jack Kluski, 1 goal, 3. Aaron Clark, 3 goals, 2 as well. So a bit of inaccuracy in front of goal costing them in the end.
Yeah, it did. And I think at the other end, the likes of Schofield and Quet continued to, link up well in another game under their belt together on the forward line. We said, at the start of the year that, they don't have that bona fide key forward, East Perth, but I think those tools are combining well.
They certainly are, and that really is a key for both sides. They had their tall timber intact in the end, and they're going to be such key role players for Perth and East Perth at the back end of the season, especially when wins are going to be even more valuable in the race for the finals.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a great win for East Perth. I think anytime you verse Perth away from home, hostile atmosphere, I think they really kept their cool considering Perth were coming late, and there was a chance towards the latter stages of the game. Catch, I'd sent it inside 50, and you thought, could this be? And Aaron Clark had a 7-point play himself where he hit the post and then moments later followed up with a nice snapping goal. So they just, didn't go away the D's all day, but unfortunately, they didn't come out in the end, and East Perth seemed pretty relieved on the final side.
They certainly did. The body language really told the story. It was just relief because Perth kept coming at them, but East Perth in the end, they had a little more in the tank, not just through Brayshaw. North incredible with 30, and Angus Scott with 24. Amongst the goals, William Cassidy with 2 as well, but Perth getting the 4 points by 4 up at Mineral Resources Park on Anzac Day. And if you thought that one was close, so was this one at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. Subiaco and Peel Thunder, and again Peel Thunder had to come from behind in the final term, but Subiaco took the points by the barest of margins, 10-8 to 10-7, and for Peel Thunder, more heartbreak. Their second straight 1-point loss.
Yeah, it was, and you feel for them. But Subiaco, they got out of the box early with 4 straight goals. They didn't kick a point in the first half, Subiaco. It was just ultra accuracy at its finest, and Peel weren't on the same page there, missing a few chances. And Subiaco, they've been on the end of some close wins and more recent times some close losses. So this will do some confidence and restore a bit of dignity back to Jared Schofield's side.
What really was the difference for me was their tackling. Almost 100 tackles in that game. If you have a around that number of tackles, you're going to win the game. 97, in fact, to 49. So Subiaco, tremendous in their tackling game. They out-tackled Peel Thunder by 2 country miles, and they had 16 more inside 50. So the general play, Subiaco had more control of and nearly surrendered the game. So finishing off will be something that Subiaco will have to work on ahead of their game against South Fremantle on Saturday night. But the way they put pressure on Peel's ball carriers was immense.
Yeah, and their midfield adapted well. Greg Clark had 24 disposals, and considering they had, almost half the less hit-outs against Peel, their rucks, Costa and Riddle got on top there, but Subiaco made full use of out of the contest.
How important was Cossum's role in the ruck? 31 hit-outs to go with his 10 disposals. Okay, it's not the calibre of a Cox, but, and especially with Burmeister not being in the side either, Cossum is really going to take that role as Peel's new first-string ruckman, especially with Mason Cox being out there at the Dockers.
Yeah, 207 centimetres coming over from interstate, so they've done their homework in terms of identifying a suitable replacement if Cox was to go out, which is the case now. So, another game into his repertoire. He's only set 2 games in, don't forget, as well, league footy. So imagine what he can do if he can continue to get a good run.
Still got a lot of work to do, no doubt. He's still got a lot of growth in his game, and he can develop. He's a good, mature player. He's got great capacity to develop his game. 31 hitouts is that key ruckman, but his follow-up work, I reckon, was good, but can get better.
Yeah, and I think that's a work in progress for Adam Reid. And of course, they'll be disappointed with the loss, but I think a lot of these players are, new to WAFL footy, if they're AFL listed players, being drafted, or interstate recruits like Tardrew as well, who had 30 disposals the only on the ground to reach that feat.
Liam Hickmott was very desperate in that Subiaco side. He really was in every contest. 12 tackles to go with his 21 disposals. And his desperation, to me, was a real key in Subiaco holding on. Just the way he attacked the ball with ferocity. And, you could put that down to, the discipline that he's got in that Subiaco side. And it's a new look side in terms of discipline and the way they play the game. Pressure orientated around the ball carrier. Hickmott, to me, was the leader of that pack.
Yeah, and he's an experienced campaigner now. He's been there 7 or 8 years in the league setup, so knows what it takes to get it done. He's a premiership player on multiple occasions. So, he's leading the way without a doubt. I thought it was good to see Jax McGowan out there of return for a couple of seasons out for Subiaco. Had 16 disposals, playing a mix between half forward and further up the ground.
Greg Clark just continues to rack up the possessions, 24 to go with his 7 tackles as well. The forward lines had a tough day as well, 10 goals 6 to 10 goals 7 rather to 10 goals 8. But the forward lines, they had some opportunities, but they were starved of them because it was, pretty much a contested game, a lot of contested ball that was there to be won. Subiaco just won a little more of it.
They did, and for Peel, it's sort of a mental thing now, losing a couple of games by 1 point. You don't want that to become a regular thing, so they just need to look at that as not a theme, despite being back-to-back games, and really use it as fuel for the next one.
Subiaco getting the job done by a single point, and for Peel Thunder, it's their 3rd straight loss, so some early alarm bells ringing for Adam Reid's side. Now, we anticipated Claremont and East Fremantle to be another close game, both evenly matched, but heavens, didn't Claremont kick the sweep or what? 21-11, 137 to 3-8-26, 111 points, and East Fremantle goalless after quarter time.
It was a dark day for East Fremantle as a whole. Their reserves lost by over 100 to Claremont as well. Luckily, their Colts are, not luckily because they lost by a point, but that was a lot closer. But in terms of the league, it was only 4 goals to 3 in that first quarter, but then, as you said, they did not score a single goal after that. Stranadica, Robinson and McManus, the only goal scorers in the first quarter, and then Hunter with 5, DeLacy and Gowdy also 4, Van Rooyen 3, Rogers, Waterman 2. So out of the goal kickers that they had, majority of them were multiple goal kickers on the day.
They ran out of gas straight away. They ran hard early, East Fremantle, but ran out of steam early. And that, for me, is one of many areas where it all went wrong for East Fremantle on Saturday. What do you think went wrong from your point of view as far as East Fremantle were concerned?
Well, I think it's hard because you don't want to read too much into this one result, but I think potentially they have exceeded expectations, and not saying by any means they got ahead of themselves, but I think sometimes when you potentially exceed expectations, it can come back to bite you in a hurry. But that's not through any fault of their own in terms of getting ahead of themselves. I think Claremont's a quality opponent, and they're really pushing themselves for a premiership contender.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Claremont have just got great quality all around the ground. East Fremantle, they've still got a little bit of that, but it's a transitional period for East Fremantle. They're a largely new side. They've got some interstate recruits and a lot of young players coming up through the twos and in the Colts as well. But I think this was a bit of a reality check for them with the way Claremont just piled on the pressure and just kept on going, goal after goal after goal. Especially Jaden Hunter, 5 goals, tremendous work in the forward line. Sam Van Rooyen with 3, Talon DeLacy with 4, and Oliver Eastland in the ruck. After a couple of games where he was really tested by the likes of Mason Cox and co against Pure Thunder, and then last week against South Fremantle, he really was back in great form. 44 hitouts for last year's Player of the Year.
Yeah, he was, and got on top of the fellow ruckman,
Eric
Benning against his former side. So, I think Claremont, I mean, for East Fremantle, like, they've beaten good sides. They beat East Perth. They've, taken it up to other teams. So it's not that they're beating bottom teams and they're coming into this, but I think it also is potentially Claremont. The gap between Claremont and South Freo and the next best teams might be bigger than we thought.
Yeah, we could be. They've got tremendous quality, Claremont, especially in their on-ball game. England, terrific with 33. Bailey Rogers, 33, and a couple of goals. He's showing that despite the Achilles troubles that he's had in recent years, you could just get him on the field and he'll play 110% intensity. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he just gets better with age, doesn't he? And we're saying that, 4 years later after he won a Sandover, 4 or 5 years after he won a Sandover. So, that speaks volumes of he's still, probably in his prime.
He certainly is. East Fremantle, they had Jack Cleaver with 25 disposals. He had 10 tackles as well. Tom Joyce had 10 tackles as well. John O'Marsh, has played most of his career up forward. He went down back, took 10 marks and 20 disposals. But having said that, it's because the ball went down his way a lot.
Yeah, and he didn't do too much wrong, did he? I mean, there's only so much you can take when it's coming in so often. But yeah, I mean, he's adapted pretty well considering he's played a large part of his career as a key forward, and then through necessity really has had to go back. And that's probably where he's going to play his footy from now on, you'd have to say. But obviously still having that ability to go up forward if needed.
East Fremantle, they won't lose sleep over this loss. I know it was a big loss, 111 points, but they were sort of expecting something like this from Claremont. I felt that they were expecting it because not the margin of the loss, but a tough game against a tough quality side, a top quality side like Claremont, and I don't think they were prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, you can never be prepared entirely until the game, until the ball is bounced up. But yeah, potentially bit of a shock for East Fremantle. But I think Claremont are so good at home, and they're more hungry than ever to prove a lot of outside noise that their premiership window that they keep not reaching is still open.
It's their best start of the season in a number of years. They're 4 out of 4. They're on top of the ladder. Nothing can really go wrong at this stage for Claremont, and I'm saying that because they're just doing everything right. They're playing the fundamentals of their game right. Ash Prescott has got them to a great standard of discipline and match fitness, and they look a professional setup as they have done for a number of years. But now, this is to a greater extent, even though, Jai Bolton retired. I'm not putting the onus on Jai, but I think, with the young guns that Claremont have got and the evolution of a couple of players in that Claremont side, namely Zach Main-Waring, they are starting to look like the side that is certainly gunning for a premiership.
Yeah, Zach Main-Waring's midfield move has been a revelation, really, and I think because they have had those hurdles of not reaching the ultimate in Ash Prescott's time, that allows them not to get complacent because they have no reason to, yet they're still winning games of footy. So I think it works out well that they're not getting ahead of themselves.
The transition game in particular is why Claremont also a top quality side. Going from defence into attack, they did it seamlessly against East Fremantle, winners by 111 points. But there was no blowouts on Sunday down at Mineral Resources Park. West Coast and Swan Districts, after 12 failed attempts, the Eagles finally broke their duck by a single point, but almost blowing a 28-point half-time lead due to the efforts of Jackson McLaughlin in the forward line. But the likes of Tom Gross, Matty Owies were able to help the Eagles hold on for another 1-point result.
Yeah, great job as well with you and Denon Melrose on the call. Exciting
Heart-racing
finish.
stuff.
As we said last week when we were previewing the show, these two teams are building quite the rivalry in terms of close games. I mean, last year, obviously, Swan Districts got the job done under lights at MRP, and West Coast finally breaking the streak of never beating Swan Districts, which can be put to bed.
Yeah, they certainly can. They've now beaten at least once every side currently in the WAFL competition since they began in 2019. For me, the star of the show was Matt Owies, and obviously there's been a lot of talk about, he can play well on the WAFL but can't back it up in the AFL. He can be a WAFL player for a bit of a spell, but I reckon he's shown that, he can be set for another chance at AFL level. 5 goals, tremendous work inside 50, honoured great leads, and the way he was able to convert on those attempts. 5 goals, 3, he had plenty of scoring shots, but his conversion early really was the difference in the end for the West Coast Eagles, getting that breathing space early in the game.
Yeah, I'd like to see him play it another week at least in the WAFL and potentially back it up, because I think sometimes we can be reactionary and bring it back, especially after a below subpar performance in the Derby. But to his credit, he came back and he's an ideal player as a small forward with a lot of young forwards like Malachi Champion, who wasn't out there. But a lot of young players out there for West Coast who can, get some experience of a guy like Matty O's, who's been around the system at Carlton for a while and coming over to the Eagles in his second year.
Matt Flynn in the ruck, another impressive showing. 40 hit-outs to go with his 41 the previous week against Subiaco. Jack Hutchinson down the back line, tremendous. He had 12 marks. Caleb Datson provided the great foil for Owies in the forward line. The former South Fremantle player kicked the first 2 goals of the game. Went a bit quiet, but was opportunistic in front of goal for his third. And then Tom Cole down back, Tom Gross and also Finley McRae in midfield, working hard for every possession. They got over 20. Swan Districts, though, they left their run pretty late, but it was a well-timed run as well because they had 2 players, McLaughlin and tall forward Jovan Petrick, keeping the Swans in it. They were tremendous marking presence inside forward 50 when the game was still there in the balance, especially at three-quarter time when they cut the deficit down to 11 points, and they were able to take some opportunities inside that forward 50. Having said that, the last 10 minutes of the third quarter saw the Swans have 3 chances in front of goal. They only converted on 1 of them. If they had converted the other 2, then who knows? Maybe the result might have been different. So, not saying the game slipped away, but you could say it was one that got away.
Yeah, tough one for Swans fans to swallow. Mentioned Petrick kicked 2 goals 3 there. Leo Steed kicking 2 goals 2 was impressive in his third game of footy in league level. But yeah, West Coast coming away and 3 wins on the trot. Hey, they are. Who knows? They might be a dark horse to continue their streak and cause some trouble for the opposition teams. Now that they've won 3 in a row, you don't want to be coming up against West Coast and having that mindset of the past potentially of a percentage booster.
I will ask you again, what year is this? What year is this? We never thought that the Eagles would be so good so early in the season, considering the past few years, but it's just incredible. I take my hat off to them.
Yeah, and it's good for the competition as well. You want these games that anyone can win on any given day, and it's been a while. Obviously, they made their finals in 2019, that inaugural year, but they've struggled ever since. So I guess with the AFL team losing by 100 points to St Kilda, potentially some of these players might come in. But for the WAFL's sake, I think, if they can get as much continuity as possible, especially with the likes of Gross and Owies and that sort of thing, contributing heavily, that will do themselves no harm to win a 4th straight.
A couple more key players for Swan Districts before we go on to the next game. McLaughlin, brilliant with 4 goals. He really kept the Swans in it in the third quarter. Clint Hinchcliffe, magnificent in midfield, 30 disposals. His delivery to the forward 50 in that second half was just brilliant. And also Kate Shawcraft, playing as that midfielder defender role, was magnificent as well. And Josh Sepro, he continues to be one of the Swans' best 4 or 5 in that midfield rotation, 26 disposals. But that first quarter, that really set them on the back foot. But credit to them for having enough gall to come back from what could have been a precarious and massive defeat potentially.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a theme this year in the WAFL. Teams giving up an early lead and coming back in momentum swings. Swans were part of it themselves with East Perth, where it was kind of the opposite of how they played against the Eagles on the weekend. Sometimes it's just funny how the game can turn out.
It certainly can, but the Eagles, they got it done. 3rd win in a row. They're up to 3rd place on the ladder, and which will show you that in just a little bit. Winners by a point over Swan Districts. Now we go over to the final game of round 4 over at HIF Health Insurance Oval. It was no real surprise that South Fremantle were able to get it done, but credit to West Perth for sticking by them to an extent. But in the end, class told, especially in that third quarter, 5 goals to 4, making the difference in the end. The South Fremantle won 11-11 to 7-5. 30-point winners, the Bulldogs back on track.
They were back on track. It wasn't super convincing, but sometimes you just got to win, as we spoke to Craig White about. They had a lot of contributors on the scoreboard, and anytime you keep West Perth to no goals in the first quarter and kick 3 yourself, it's going to be an ideal start.
That really was the first setup, wasn't it, for South Fremantle to get the victory. They were able to keep West Perth goalless. Their backline worked overtime, especially through their captain in Chad Pearson. He was magnificent, 24 touches and 8 marks. Rowan O'Hare continues to improve as a key player for South Fremantle, 21. And Toby Dodds and Brendan Donaldson all were terrific. The conditions obviously were a bit tricky. It was very overcast throughout the second half, a little bit dewy at ground level, so ball handling was a little bit difficult for both sides. But South Fremantle handled the conditions better, and you talk about the likes of Trey Rusco kicking 2 and Mitchell Gear kicking 2, as well as their new ruckman, Aidan Harvey, who came in to replace Hamish Free, who's out for 7 weeks after this with a syndesmosis issue in his ankle. He held his own against the likes of Riley Sprigg in the ruck.
Yeah, and they also signed West Love as well,
right,
who former Claremont player who's giving a bit more backup in the ruck stocks considering a Hamish Free injury. So, I guess it's hard to replace a player like Freya Simpson medalist, but they filled the shoes at relatively short notice there on the weekend with those guys coming in, West Love playing reserves, and then midfield got on top, like Winder was in there, Pearson had high numbers in the back half, Jake Folorenko as well with 22 disposals. West Perth did get their hands on the footy through Connor West and Kane Bevan, but I guess that gap between the next couple of players. And they did bring back Nelson and Black, but probably didn't have the impact. You can't expect too much from those veterans as much as they were in their heyday.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron Black, 7 marks from 15 disposals as well, but he didn't really get going, especially after coming back from a nasty rib injury as well. Bruised, not broken, but still quite nasty, so it took him a while to get into gear. Tyler Keitel just kept doing Tyler Keitel things, 4 goals, 1. But Keegan Knott, who was dropped for this game, of course, Keegan Knott's omission from the side left a massive hole in that West Perth forward line, and Tyler Keitel again was their only effective forward. I said it before and I'll say it again, West Perth's forward line needs a bit of a spark. It's looking very predictable, and I reckon it's either one of those two that'll have to go to make way for a strong young forward eager to fill in those shoes and to fill in that gap inside the forward 50.
Yeah, Keegan Knott kicked a goal in the reserves on the weekend, so it didn't by any means dominate in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, we've said it before, like, are these guys holding on for the sake of holding on? You could argue either way for that. I think Black obviously has that 300-game milestone in his mind, which he obviously deserves to get to. But yeah, potentially, they need to go younger. We have to wait and see, but they do need experience out there. Could see Kobe the Cry make his league debut as well.
Yeah.
Had the 6 touches.
Took a great mark as well in the forward line.
He did. Obviously, a lot of eyes on him being the nephew of Mark and son of Brent. So it was a feel-good moment wearing his dad's number all these years later.
Yeah, talent runs in the family. It is great to see the next generation being taken to the next level. But it was South Fremantle that got the points in the end. They're back on track after their first loss last week against Claremont. That's 4 rounds completed. We are already in a month to the season. Unbelievable. It goes quickly, but time flies when you're having fun. Here's the ladder after the first 4 rounds of competition. Claremont on top, 4 wins out of 4. Then comes South Fremantle in second place. And then the West Coast Eagles. Talk about unbelievable. They are in third place after their 3rd win in a row. Who would have thought we'd see them in the 5? But credit to them. Then comes Perth and East Perth making up the 5. And then Subiaco just outside on percentage. So too East Fremantle, although their percentage took a real belting on Saturday. And then Peel Thunder and Swan Districts with 1 win. And West Perth still winless after 4 rounds of competition. The gap is starting to really show between the top sides and the bottom sides in terms of quality of the lineup. But it's still pretty close. You see there, a couple of teams lodged on 8 points, so it's still a close race early.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying Claremont and South Fremantle at an early stage seem like the teams to beat, but still, from 3rd down to 7th, 8th, there's a lot of questions still to be answered.
Absolutely. Round 5, we look forward to that preview. Denham Melrose is going to be jumping in to preview all the great Round 5 action, including 3rd versus 5th on the ladder. That is going to be a rip snorter of a game. Time for the votes. Round 4, the Around the Waffle Player of the Year votes. 1 vote, Liam Hickmott of Subiaco. He really was the enforcer in that win over Peel Thunder. His desperation at the contest was magnificent. Just kept laying tackle after tackle, and especially in massive passages as well when Peel Thunder just looked to find some daylight out of the congestion going into attack, and Liam Hickmott stopped them in their tracks. 2 votes, Chad Pearson, the Bulldogs captain, was the key architect of holding West Perth down inside that 50, especially in the first quarter in which they held West Perth goalless. His marking prowess just continues to shine inside that backline for South Fremantle. 3 votes, the evergreen Bailey Rogers just keeps getting it done, the Sandover medalist of 2021. Achilles problems or not, he's a man that can get the job done in a heartbeat, and he had plenty of disposal and plenty of effectiveness to show for it against East Fremantle. 4 votes, Tom Gross of the West Coast Eagles. Now, he didn't have as many disposals as a Finlay McRae, but his efficiency in his delivery when going to the forward 50, especially that sniper pass to Matt Owies for his 5th goal, that goes to show how much quality Gross has got as a key footballer. And we called his first game last year down at Bassendean, and from that game on, it was clear that he was going to be a high-quality footballer, and he's certainly showing that. But the top gun for the ANZAC weekend, he played with a point to prove. From East Perth, Hamish Brayshaw, hammer, and he certainly laid it down against Perth on the weekend. He was magnificent and showed tremendous leadership when the game was in the balance. When the chips were down, when the pressure's on, no player thrives under pressure more like Hammer.
Yeah, what a way to return as well. First game back, 5 votes, no worries. It's easy done for him.
I don't think it was easy. He had a hard contest, but, like I said before, he thrives on that sort of pressure, and he's a player that just loves playing under duress because he knows how to get it done. The challenge motivates him, and the numbers will certainly show for it in the way he played the game, especially in the spirit of a clash like that, the traditional Anzac Day clash. So no more worthy player of getting the 5 votes this week than Hammer.
Yeah, and I was there, obviously, as I said, and even when the game was really tense, just his calming presence on the field to keep a cool head really, made an impact on his teammates.
Mate, they're absolutely magnificent. Well done, Hammer. Top gun for Hammer Brayshaw of East Perth. And that will bring us to the leaderboard for the first time in 2026. And it's still pretty tight early. Bailey Rogers, he has the lead on the rule that he polled twice so far this year. All the rest have polled once. Hamish Brayshaw in second, Jarvis Pena third, and then Mitch Schofield, Stephen Gyro the top five, and then 6th through to 10th, Tom Gross, Josh Edwards, Matt Parker, Mason Cox, and Sam Alvarez, the vote getters so far. 23 players have polled votes, but it's still pretty early.
Yeah, still early, and it could be anyone's game at this point. So look forward to seeing how it shapes up as we head towards, I guess, the middle stages of the year.
And what a critical time it will be in season 2026. We'll clear a break, and when we do come back, Ethan's Colts Report is back, and we'll recap all the action in the WAFLW, which saw games split over 3 days, and Swan Districts continuing on their winning run. This is Around the Waffle on the Around the Waffle YouTube channel and on your podcast service. Stay with us.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the Waffle. Paul Persick and Ethan Roth with you, recapping the ANZAC weekend of Waffle football. Hey, you can check out our social content on Facebook and Instagram. We're almost up to 1,000 Instagram followers, Rothy, in such quick time too.
Yeah, it's an impressive feat, so obviously well done to you for steering that. And yeah, if you're not following already, jump on board and be part of those almost 1,000.
That's all our wonderful fans that make the job a lot easier. We really do appreciate your support. Keep it coming. Let's reach 1,000 followers on Instagram very, very soon. Ethan's Colts Report is back. Rothy, you're in the midst of all the great Waffle Colts action in 2026. The game spread over 3 days. We had a couple of interesting results, and starting off on the Friday night.
Yeah, Subiaco got on the board in 2026 after a few losses. So, comprehensively over Peel. I mean, we talked about Peel potentially winning this game, but they looked anything but that. As Dylan Young kicked 3 goals, and a host of players dominated there. Thatcher Simmons with a point to prove potentially for missing the state 18s, had 30 disposals and kicked a goal. Peel Thunder, probably the highlight of the night was Tassie Faithful's mark, well called by Jordan McCallum as well. It's done the rounds a bit on socials.
That'll be a mark of the year contender.
Yeah, unfortunately for Peel's sake, that was probably as far as the highlights went, but Subiaco, they will take a lot of confidence out of that, their first win of 2026. And then moving over to Saturday, there was a standalone game after the league game that's called at Mineral Resources Park, where Perth comprehensively in the end beat East Perth by 40 points. Zach Workman kicked 3 goals and had 22 disposals.
The working man.
A best on ground performance in just game number 3, and also Barraca, another debutant, kicked 2. Brown, 2 for Perth. So that was really impressive, even East Perth as well. A lot of debutants for both teams, but they adapted to waffle footy as much as anyone else. 40-point win for Perth on Saturday. Then moving over to Sunday, and it was a cracker to start things off in the replay of a couple of finals where they met last year. Claremont winning by 1 point over East Fremantle. The ball was deep in East Fremantle's pocket, and they almost got a mark and a shot at goal, but it wasn't to be. A lot of team changes as well, with PSA duties in state 18s kicking in for Claremont on. And they got out of the blocks early, kicking 4-0 in the first quarter, and ultimately that served them to hold on in the end. And then the last game, again after a league game last night, South Fremantle, just like they did to Perth at HIF Health Insurance Oval, they went to Joondalup and won comprehensively 7-8-50. West Perth lost 19-5, 119 to South Fremantle. And South Fremantle, off the grand final last year, they look primed as ever. They're undefeated, and Sam Hockham kicked 6 goals to be one of the players of the match.
Yeah, well done to South Fremantle. Massive win over West Perth. They love playing that big ground at HIF Health Insurance Oval very well. It suits their running game. The ladder as it stands, both the Fremantle teams occupying the top 2, but it's South on top, East Fremantle in 2nd, Claremont 3rd, Perth 4th, and East Perth 5th. And Subiaco and West Perth a win behind. The Swan Districts and Peel Thunder yet to get off the mark. We're seeing the 5 take shape early here.
Yeah, and it's an interesting time, as I was saying, because State 18's players are out, PSA players are out, and I think for a team like South Fremantle, they had a few players who were unlucky to miss. So the likes of Chase Vanderhook, Riley Stannard in there for South Fremantle, and I think that's going to continue to hold them in good stead because from a continuity perspective.
Now, of course, Ethan's Colts report on the Monday nights throughout season 2026. Massive round 5 coming up, and it begins in Mandurah on Friday.
Yeah, Peel Thunder loving the Friday games at the moment, despite not still winning a game. West Perth could be a bit of a danger game for them potentially, but I think West Perth should get the job done there under lights. Claremont and Swan Districts on Saturday. Swan Districts obviously coming off the bye, so it'll be hard to read, but Claremont you think would be strong favourites there, despite all those team changes. And then also on Saturday, East Fremantle and Perth. Perth will take a lot of confidence out of that win, but I think East Fremantle will be hungry to bounce back, so expect them to probably come away with the win. And then the last game, also on Saturday at 10:55, bit of a later start, Subiaco and South Fremantle. Again, Subiaco will take some confidence, but South Fremantle, hard to identify any faults in their game at the moment, so you'd expect them to win out, but there's probably seeming to be an upset at least 1 or 2 games.
Could be at least one of them. Hopefully the first 2 games. I'm doing Peel Thunder West Perth and Claremont Swan Districts. So those 2 games, you never know what could happen with these 2 sides. Peel Thunder and Swan Districts in particular. They're both desperate for a win, but they're facing a big test.
Yeah, they are. But sometimes stranger things can happen. So I think I'm on the call for the Subiaco South Fremantle ones. So that'll be interesting at Leederville.
That'll be a good one, no doubt about that. Could be a clash that could determine where Subiaco's truly at, especially since they're outside the 5 after the last weekends of play. And of course, South Fremantle unbeaten. They're going strongly after a grand final defeat.
They are. So Matt Rogers will be eager to make that continue at Leederville.
No doubt about that. Okay, let's get to WAFLW, Rothy, and of course you're in the thick of the action as well. We start on Friday night, the ATCO WAFLW competition. Round 5 got underway at Mineral Resources Park. And the old saying, sometimes you got to win ugly, and that's what Swan Districts did to make it 5 wins out of 5 with a 14-point win over Perth, 4-7 to 111. And again, Perth's big trouble in their game so far is converting off simple chances. Everything else, all the other areas of their game, their run, their tackling, their discipline, their work through the corridor is great, but they're just not rewarding that work in front of goal. And unfortunately, they were exposed again.
Yeah, the first quarter you thought, hold on, what could happen here? A bit of a boil over Perth leading, but they've tended to do that at times in their short existence, taking it up to the better teams. But the third quarter is where obviously Swan Districts came out. Might have got a little bit of a rev up from Jason Burton, what they needed, and ultimately that served them the momentum. But 14 points, probably a lot closer than we thought between these 2 sides.
Jamie Henry just keeps on being Jamie Henry. She was the star again, but 16 tackles as well. She's added a lot of physicality to her game in the last month since the season began. She's not just your in and out running midfielder, but she can add a lot of physical pressure to her game as well.
Yeah, 39 disposals, but as you said, 16 tackles, 6 marks. So, she's honestly just bringing her own footy at the moment.
She's got it on a string.
Yeah. So, honestly, I'd like to know if there's any other better players going, better than her across not only state league but wider, I guess, over east.
She's the best in Australia. I'll throw it out there. She's the best in Australia as far as the women's state league players are concerned. How she hasn't been taken in an AFLW draft sooner is anybody's guess. But just the way she's been able to keep her form consistently going and on the up, over 30 disposals, just a testament to her hard work.
Yeah, and named in the Kia State squad as well. So good omen for her.
I think she'll be captain. I think she'll be captain. Just the way she's been able to lead that Swans side into this impressive 5-game winning run. And this is my recommendation to the state selectors: name Jamie Henry captain.
Well, she'll lead by example either way. So even if she's not, she'll let her footy do the talking.
That is true. But, come on. It's a no-brainer to name her captain. But she had some great support along the way in that game on Friday night. Beros with 10 tackles. She had 11 hit-outs as well. Was beaten in the ruck duel against Molly Warren. And credit to Molly Warren for holding her own against Thames and Beros. But again, Swan Districts just lacking that prime ruckman through Lauren Quaife's suspension. But, Beros had a lot of support around her on the ball. Riley was terrific. So was Naomi Baker and also Jessica Cox. They just have weapons everywhere, Swan Districts, no matter the quality of the opposition.
They, bat very deep, don't they? And Isabella Shannon was probably the lone hand in the midfield with 27 disposals for the Demons. We thought that matchup would be the one to potentially make or break it. And Henry probably got the upper hand there, but Shannon can still hold her head up high.
She certainly can. Maybe a Dara Kerr medal vote or two in that game. Molly Warren, 26 hit-outs. Elisa Smogovic with 19. Poppy Stockwell with 19 as well. But they just really weren't able to find an answer. Not just the conversion in front of goal, but they were often second to the ball, especially after quarter time when it looked as though Perth were onto something.
Yeah, absolutely. And Perth, I think, will still take a lot of positives out of it, considering they started the game well. It's just that conversion, which I'm sure will be a key feature at training and whatnot.
No doubt about that. Let's go to Saturday now. This is the only game on Saturday for round 5 of the ATCO WAFLW Premiership. Subiaco against Peel Thunder. And to be blunt, Subiaco weren't at their best. They kept letting Peel into the game. Credit to Peel. Their maturity as a football side is starting to get better. But in the end, a big first quarter paved the way for Subiaco to just get some breathing room early and maintain it. They won by 8 points over Peel Thunder, 6-10, 46 to 6-2, 38. Dare I say it was the Paige Shepherd show. What a performance from Paige Shepherd with 41 hit-outs, 13 tackles, a superb showing for the Key Lion.
Yeah, 41 touches, 17 handballs, and kicks 24, 13 tackles as well. So, I feel like she's potentially not overtaken because it's a team game, but Steen and Petrevsky, I feel like Shepherd's the one that's probably elevated their game maybe above those two, and potentially at times she was the third string of those, so it shows her versatility and her ability to really push on in her second year at the club.
And it shows how mobile and adaptable Subiaco's midfield rotation is, not just down to the efforts of one player, it's down to as a collective as well, with Shepherd, Petrevsky, Lisa Steen, who had 36 disposals and 8 tackles, kicked a lovely goal on the run as well. So Subiaco's midfield unit is starting to really click, because it looked fragmented in the first couple of weeks and weren't at their best. Now they really gelled as a midfield unit, and this is really the first game that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And credit to Peel though, they didn't go away throughout the game. They stood there right with them. They won the last quarter, and they were the ones that made the most of their accuracy. Caitlin Bartlett kicking 3 goals. She was their one wood up forward.
Absolutely. Ebony Bilsich in midfield, 20 disposals, and also they did look as if they were Wrigley-centric once again. Chloe Wrigley had 28 disposals and 11 tackles, but no one really came close to her as far as playing that on-the-ball role, and especially winning the ball out of the congestion. Chloe Wrigley seems to take a lot in, but you can only take so much. You need that support in your midfield rotation, but I still think she's not getting it.
Yeah, it's going to take some time, though. I think we have to remember that.
True.
A lot of players coming in there, but I think it's also a reflection of how good she's been for them.
Having said that, Peel Thunder, they were able to keep in touch in this game. They didn't let the margin go to above 2 or 3 goals at least. So, the Peel Thunder players and coaching staff can hold their heads up high with this result. Okay, they lost the game, but they can build on this with confidence heading into their next couple of games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you never want to take a loss, but if you had said 8-point loss before the game, depending on how that would play out, of course, I think Peel would be relatively comfortable. I know it's weird to say considering they lost the game, but I think some positives will be taken for them.
Let's go to Sunday. 2 games on the Sunday, and unusual one for you, a morning match in the WAFLW out there at HIF Health Insurance Oval, but this one was a beauty. West Perth and South Fremantle, and South Fremantle, they looked gone at 3/4 time. The game was slipping away from them, but they left their run a little bit too late in the end, 4-6-30 to 5-8-38. West Perth by 8 points, and West Perth, that win will certainly spark them up a bit.
Yeah, it was interesting. Felt bizarre in some ways going to HIF Health Insurance Oval for a game this early, but nonetheless it was a good game. And West Perth, they were in the box seat pretty much the whole way, but then South Fremantle fired a punch or two, the likes of Polomino and Hadley, to say we're right in this, and they didn't sort of go away the whole game, similar to that game against Claremont last week where they sort of let the lead slip, but on this occasion they turned that around. So yeah, that would be pleasing for them. But it was hard to look past Zoe Huggett. It was probably the talking point going into the game. First time against her former side, where she won the leading goal kicker award last year for them, and she kicked 3 on the day, including a nice banana on the boundary.
Best game for West Perth so far, I reckon, for Zoe Huggett. You know, not just because it was against her old side, but she finally found a way to really be the icebreaker for West Perth in that game. You know, kicking 3 goals, including that beautiful banana goal on the boundary, as you alluded to. And I think this shows that Zoe Huggett can be that number 1 key forward at West Perth, because the forward line has not really functioned correctly as far as, you know, the weapons they have in front of goal, who are they going to get their goals. Zoe Huggett showed for the first time this season that she can be a key weapon up forward.
And she only had 5 disposals as well, so complete efficiency from her. So yeah, she'd be happy with that. Looking at some of the other contributors, Ellie McAvoy, 25 disposals, continuing. And Rakesha Nanup, who's been named in the State 18 squad, one of 3 players that was out there. She had 20 disposals. They just look to go to her every time, and on the left foot, on the wing, occupying whatever side it is. I think she's a name you want to watch out for from a draft standpoint. Yeah, she's got a good kick on her, and just is the next link of the chain often in their passage of play, moving the ball.
And that's what makes West Perth's midfield a lot more versatile than some people may think. You know, sometimes people say West Perth's midfield is looking pretty stagnant. They don't move around a lot. You know, they're just sitting and waiting for those pack marks, but not really the case. You know, Rakesha Nanup really adds a lot of mobility to that West Perth midfield, and I reckon she's going to go on from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, they had 4 players out who were in the 18 squad who didn't play. But yeah, you could go about the whole lineup for West Perth. Good to see Sabrina McKinnon return after 4 years out. Former Loom Nidmelis Appeal and former Fremantle and Melbourne AFLW player. She had a couple of moments. Didn't kick a goal, but I'm sure she will, and her time will come in that aspect. Thought McVie held down well for West Perth in the back half. Yeah, there was a few team changes either side as well. So, yeah, it was an interesting game. South Fremantle, you know, came from behind. A couple of players that stood out for South Fremantle. Natasha Entwistle, just so hard in the contest. And, yeah, did some really good things offensively, but applied some good smothers as well when she needed to. And, yeah, she doesn't die wondering in terms of physicality and loving the contest. And I thought Maddie Evans also had some nice moments in the back half.
Ash Gomes had 18 disposals. Maybe, again, not her best because she was taken to by the West Perth opponents. I reckon West Perth really set out to nullify her influence on the game, and to an extent they did.
Yeah, they did, but I think Ash Gomes, you know, we can only probably expect her to only expect so much from her, because she's in a new club, and yeah, she's probably having to play more inside outside than potentially she did when she had a bit more support at East Fremantle.
Yeah, absolutely. But Gomes will go on from there. 18 disposals, and Natasha Entwistle, as you said, brilliant with 16 and 11 tackles as well. And Lauren Vecchio, the playing life member at South Fremantle, also had 11 tackles. So, you know, they're not without their physicality, South Fremantle. They are ferocious side, and you know, this loss will certainly be one that they can look back on and say, you know, we were able to stick by West Perth in that last quarter, but it's their first 3 quarters that need some work.
Yeah, Vecchio back into the lineup. Well, she played last week but hadn't been signed for almost a year in the WAFLW, so good from her. But yeah, I guess the tackling, they were 46% possession, so would love to get a bit more hands on the ball, but something to work with moving forward.
Absolutely. Let's go to the final game on the Sunday, and this was no real surprise as to see who was going to be the winner of this game. Claremont in the end won by 26 points over East Perth, 10-6, 66 to 6-4, 40. But despite having 24 less inside 50s, East Perth, to their credit, you know, they never gave in. You know, they produced that effort that they can be proud of. It's a young side in the end, but the fact that they're able to take it to Claremont, keep putting in 110%, that was a real tremendous effort by East Perth. But in the end, Claremont, they've just got class everywhere. Too classy, too skillful, and just too good in the end.
Yeah, they were. But I think credit to East Perth again, like they were with them in the first quarter, and I think potentially we thought Claremont would blow this out as they did to Peel last week, but no, East Perth went with them, and yeah, they scored goals in all quarters except for the second one, which is where I guess Claremont got away with them with 4 goals themselves. But again, Beck Anderson, Jackson kicked 2 goals. I think that'll be really pleasing. As we said last week, like there's been such a heavy reliance on Rachel Ortlip, but other players as well, and they've been very successful at that. But these young players coming through because, yeah, Ortlip didn't kick a goal on the weekend, and if you've said that in the past, potentially they would have been a bit shaky.
Yeah, but they were anything but, no doubt about that. It was a real team performance, and you know the fact that they didn't just rely on Rachel Ortlip to kick their goals, they had a good spread of contributors in the midfield. It really is a testament to how Claremont have been able to really get back into top gear after that round 1 loss. It's always going to be a stickling point for them, that round 1 loss at home to Swan Districts in the grand final rematch, but now they've just kept building that block to get back into top contention, and now they're a win behind Swan Districts in that second place position on the ladder. But the way they're just going about it, they've matured a lot as a side in the last 4 weeks since that round 1 loss, and Jack Schwartz and the coaching staff can be credited for that as well.
Yeah, their midfield continue to get to work there. We speak about, I guess, Harkin, Viney and Sargent, but I think you can comfortably put Juliet Kelly right in that conversation as a fab four of key contributors in the midfield. 36 possessions, a goal as well, and 11 tackles. She was probably, best on ground by a long way.
I would have to say so as well. For East Perth, Lucy Greenwood, for me, was East Perth's best with 21 disposals and 6 tackles. Cara Sprylan with 14, Ellie Sara with 16, and also Kate Inglis-Hodge with 14 as well. And the only multiple goal kicker, Alyssa Price, with 2 goals from 10 disposals. It's a young side, but they're going to keep on growing as a side as far as their skill and their maturity as a football side, East Perth, and they can take a lot out of this loss to Claremont with a lot of positives.
Yeah, and for them, they want to win games of football, but I think it's much more than that for their side. So, we know they're very, very young in this competition still, and they're improving, which, I know it takes some time and that's not what you want to hear, but it really is steps forward.
It certainly is for East Perth, but it was Claremont that got the points in the end, quite comfortably in the end by 26 points to conclude the weekend's action of WAFLW. The ladder, as it stands after 5 rounds, Swan Districts 5 out of 5. They're going all guns blazing at the top of the ladder with a very healthy percentage. Then comes Claremont in second, Subiaco in third, West Perth with their win on the weekend gets them back into the 4 on percentage. Then East Fremantle, who of course had the bye. Then Perth, South Fremantle, East Perth and Peel Thunder rounding out the ladder after 5 rounds of competition. I think one certainty at the moment is how good are those Swans?
Yeah, absolutely. And Claremont not far behind them. West Perth probably the next best team at the moment. I know obviously Subiaco are up there as well, but it's tightening up, and those teams, those grand finalists, they have motivation behind them for those reasons.
No doubt about it. Could they contend again on that big grand final day in August? We shall have to wait and see. Votes time, Rothy. Your Around the Waffles WAFLW Player of the Year votes. Who have you got this week?
Yeah, so 1 vote against her former side, but not for that reason. 3 goals, which proved to be the difference in the end. Zoe Huggett for West Perth for the 1 vote. 2 votes from Claremont. Juliet Kelly, as I said, 36 disposals, 1 goal. She was best on ground quite comfortably, and they're winning against East Perth. 3 votes from West Perth, another representative featuring in the votes for them. Rakesha Nanup, I thought she was brilliant all day on the wing and working up hard to take some good marks. She gets the 3 votes. 4 votes, all too familiar. Not the 5 votes for this week, but still, she's bolting ahead. Jamie Henry for Swan Districts, 4 votes, close to 40 disposals again, and it feels like the stats are just a repeat, and deja vu, plenty for her, but 5 votes, just beating her out this week, deservingly so for Subiaco, a player who did reach that 40 disposal mark in the midfield. Paige Shepherd gets the 5 votes for this week.
Yeah, I think that's a good call in the end. Paige Shepherd, what a role she played in that win over Peel Thunder. A job very well done. Her tackling presence as well, as we stated earlier, really valuable for the Lions in that win over Peel.
Yeah, taking a lot of experience from her first year, and also we know the calibre player she is, being a former Sydney Swans player in the AFLW.
Let's go to the leaderboard, and it's no real surprise to see who is on top. Look at that. Jamie Henry, 23 votes in just 5 weeks. Sweet mother of golly. And then comes Paige Shepherd, Ruby Sargent-Wilson and Juliet Kelly and Beck Anderson, each on 5 votes. Noah McNaughton on 4, Claire Ortlett with 4, and then Rakesha Nanup, Sarah Viney and Isabella Shannon each with 3. But good golly, that has to be the most dominant start for a player in the Player of the Year race in quite some time.
Yeah, we'll see if it reflects on Darrick medal night later in the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does.
23 votes, and the next best has 5. My goodness gracious me. But I reckon Jamie Henry will have a nice little smile on her face seeing the leaderboard there.
Yeah, I think she's got bigger things on her mind as well with the state team, and obviously she's very team-focused as well, so she'll be happy to reap those rewards as long as the Swans and the state team are keeping along with her.
We'll take one final break, and when we do come back, the top 3 plays of the week, the highlights of the highlights here on Around the Waffle as we recap all the action from the Anzac Day long weekend. We'll be back shortly.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mack truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the Waffle. We're not too far away from reaching the final siren on tonight's show. But before we do, time for the plays of the week, the highlights of the highlights from the ANZAC Day long weekend. Let's go to Mineral Resources Park first off on Saturday night. How about an electrifying debut from Baraka?
Yeah, in the last quarter, and he had some good moments before that, but nothing like hitting the scoreboard twice in a space of a minute for them in their 40-point win, Perth. So, yeah, good signs for him. Got some nice speed on him, and eyes lit up, and the rest followed.
And it rubs off on the team as well when you got that energy, to play at that level, and you show that with great flair and skill, especially, a crafty forward like Baraka inside that forward 50 in his debut, no less. I reckon Perth have found a good one.
Yeah, and I mean, they had 5 debutants on Saturday night, and 4 of them hit the scoreboard. So that just proved wonders of guys taking their opportunity at first glance.
Now for the second play of the week, we can't go past Kobe Lacroix. We love a new debutant and the talent that runs in the family. Of course, nephew of Mark and, of course, son of Brent as well, playing his first game with West Perth. How about this Mark inside the forward 50 during the game? Just tremendous at the talent that he can bring.
On his 18th birthday as well, so no better way you'd think from a waffle standpoint to debut than for Kobe Lacroix on his 18th, blowing out the candles. Unfortunately, didn't get the win and didn't kick a goal, but I'm sure his time will come, coming off the back of 3 goals in the AFL Academy's game over Richmond's VFL the previous week.
His first game, and he's still got plenty. He's still got plenty to show over there at West Perth. How about that, Mark? Yeah, inside that forward 50 as well. And then for number 3, Jackson McLaughlin. Gee, he came out of his shell in the second half. But this mark in the last quarter in particular really stood out. It was a beautiful delivery by Clint Hinchcliffe, well weighted for Jackson McLaughlin to go back with the flight of the ball in a 2-on-1 no less and take the mark at full stretch running back. Just incredible from the player they affectionately call the Mouse.
Yeah, affectionately known as Mouse. I was about to say that. He's a real live wire. Obviously, that goal that he kicked against East Perth, but from that point on, he's really taking his game to another level. And he's becoming one of the most reliable small forwards in the competition, I'd say.
Oh, it's looking forward to seeing him once again shine against Claremont on Saturday. That is going to be a rip snorter of a game. And Jackson McLaughlin featuring in the plays of the week, the highlights of the highlights here on Around the Waffle. I'm not going to lie to you, Rothy, it will feel weird not seeing you in the chair for the preview show, but we do have a more than suitable fill-in. Denham Melrose is going to be jumping in once again to look ahead to all the action. Rothy, how do you see round 5 of the Waffle and round 6 of the WAFLW shaping up?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think, we're getting towards that stage where, a couple of weeks out from, the state bye, so teams will want to take some good momentum into that. And, Denham Melrose will no doubt, comfortably be able to slot into the chair as he did when I was away. So I have no doubt that he'll be able to carry the show, but obviously I'll still be back every Monday.
No doubt about that. What games have you got?
I have the Friday night WAFLW one actually, East Fremantle and Perth, so a regular theme that East Fremantle are doing in their home game, so looking forward to that under lights. And then Saturday Colt action, Subiaco and South Fremantle, so a couple games back to back.
All the best with the call, Rothy. I'll see you next Monday.
See you then, Paul.
Viewers and listeners, we gratefully appreciate your company here on Around the Waffle. We'll see you on Thursday night when Denham Melrose and I preview all the big action for the weekend, round 5 of the Waffle and round 6 of the ATCO WAFLW. You can check us out on the Around the Waffle socials, Facebook and Instagram, and you can watch it anytime, any place, anywhere on the Around the Waffle YouTube channel, and of course you can listen on your preferred podcast service. We'll see you on Thursday night. Have a great week.